Oh, alright guys, it is so toasty. I have to keep filming my videos like one at a time and then running downstairs to go under the AC and be like, oh my god, cool down. Yeah, so there's no AC upstairs in our house because Japan. So if you see me getting more and more glistening, it's not because I did a glow, it's because I'm nasty and I'm sorry. Anyway, welcome to my top 10 videos of the first half of 2018. I'm so excited to bring these to you guys, and I hope that you guys all read them so we can all talk about them because I'm so pumped because they're just so good. So some of these books on this list aren't necessarily more well written than other books that I didn't put on this list. It's that they have intense staying power. Like, there are some elements in the books that are just so cool that I keep thinking about them and keep thinking about them. So it's not that I think they're the most amazing, it's that there's just something about them that I can't forget. So number 10 is Amatka by Karin Tidbeck. Now this one is a trippy ass dystopian novel that follows Vanja, who is a worker who is sent to another colony, and in this colony the words that you speak actually shape items. So for instance, if you have a pair of shoes, you have to keep saying shoes, shoes, shoes. Because for some reason, if you say something else, the shoes might just fall apart, disintegrate. You just might fall apart and disintegrate. So the way that society is shaped is all about language and the specificity that you must use when describing the world around you. So as Vanja starts to work and realize just what she has gotten herself into, she also falls in love with her roommate, Nina. And their romance is kind of a subplot that is a very intriguing lesbian element to this dystopian slow burn. So this book just stuck with me because of how weird it was. It's truly weird. I would put this in either dystopian or new weird dystopian. Sure, why not? Just put them right together. So if you're interested in a new weird dystopian that has great queer elements as well as really imaginative descriptions, then this would be one for you to check out. So number 9 on my list is Ink by Alice Broadway, and this is the first in a series where we follow Leora, who lives in a kind of dystopian world where people are in this society that is cut off from the rest of the world that they call blanks. Blanks are people without tattoos. So in this society, having tattoos on your body is a way of telling people your life story. So every really important event that happens to you is inked upon your skin. And when Leora's father dies, his body is going to be flayed and his skin made into a skin book. So yes, trigger warnings for if that sounds like that would gross you out, because that happens a lot in the book, and if that's not something you can handle, you're probably not going to read these. But anyway, when your body skin is made into a skin book, it is then weighed if your life had been good or not. When she goes to her father's weighing, realizes that something is amiss and things don't go as planned. And Leora has to decide what she's going to believe about her society, who she is as a person, and where she wants to fit into the scheme of things, because she is not even who she thought she was. So this book did have problematic elements. I thought that the writing was a little juvenile in some places, but I just cannot get the idea of skin books and tattoos telling your story out of my mind. So I definitely want to read the second one, like, very, very soon. And I really recommend this book to anyone who likes, again, dystopians or strong female characters or tattoos. The different tattoos and their meanings was so cool. And it's also cool to see the stigma of tattoos flipped on its head, especially being in Japan. I have quite a lot of tattoos and I always have to hide them when I go out. And it's just something that I have done since living abroad because they're not really accepted in Japan on the whole. So I thought that the flip of it, where if you have no marks on your skin, it was like, oh weird, we can't even understand who she is as a person, I found that idea very intriguing. So if it sounds like you would also be interested, I really, really, really recommend this book. It was awesome. It's also quite short, so you should definitely just check it out. Alrighty, and number 8 is Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. This one took me by complete surprise. I heard that this was a YA Nigerian-inspired fantasy novel, and I was kind of feeling some trepidation because YA novels, sometimes I don't gel so well with the writing style, but Nnedi Okorafor's mind is like, psh, like brilliant. I want to like live inside her head for like a week and just get my inspiration for like my whole life, because the way that she writes this story was just so mind-blowingly like imaginative and just so splendid to read. So in this one, we follow Sunny, who is an albino girl living in Nigeria, and she doesn't really fit into her society. She's seen as an outsider. And then she finds out that she actually has some sort of powers, which she comes to find out are part of voodoo culture and the jaguar community. So it was brilliant. I had some problems with the plotting and the pacing towards the end specifically, but the bulk of the novel was just brilliant. And I also really want to read the second one, Akata Warrior, very, very soon. I think the reason I haven't read the sequel to the first one is because I know I'm going to love it, so I'm kind of waiting until I hit a slump, and then I'm going to be like, oh yes, Akata Warrior, yes! Bring me back to the world of reading, because if anything could do it, her imagination definitely could. So number 7 on this list is actually 2 books, and it's Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I hesitated to put this on this list because everyone knows this duology, so I didn't think there would be much call for me to bring more people's attention to it. But then I was like, it's kind of lying though if I don't talk about it, because I really, really enjoyed these books. So even if people don't need to hear again how amazing they are, I just want to be true to the like form of the list that this definitely needs to be on here. So in Six of Crows, we follow 6 outcasts who band together to form a gang, and they go on an impossible heist journey. So the thing about this is that it's not even about the plot really, it's just about the characters. I just found her writing of the characters and the nuance and their relationships and their back history to be just like mind-meltingly good. And her writing style, I think, is just, it sucks you in and it gets you to feel things for all of the characters, and you get so invested that Crooked Kingdom was better, in my opinion, than Six of Crows. So, which is really hard to do, to have even the next novel be even better than the first amazing novel. So I really wanted to include these 2 on this list, and if you haven't read it and you're kind of like, I don't know, it's YA, I would definitely say it's worth the read. I gave both like a 4+, which means like there are definitely some problems, but they're really good, and they're so readable, and they're just absolutely fantastic escapism. So definitely check them out if you haven't already. Yeah, so loved them. What can I say? So number 6 is a book coming from Spain, and it is The Light of the Fireflies by Paul Penn. And this was one of the books that Amazon International was giving away for free as their translated works promotion, and I just picked it up amongst some others that sounded interesting. I was not expecting to be so blown away. I was so blown away that when I read this book, I made an individual discussion of the novel, so I will leave that link down below as well. So we follow an unnamed boy who narrates his life living in the basement of a house. He doesn't know why he's always been down there, but he really likes living down there with his entire family. So there's his mother and his father and his sister and his brother and also his grandmother. And as he recounts his days down there, he's so innocent and so sweet that the things he describes, he thinks they're one thing, you realize they're another, and the horror intensifies. There are so many triggers for this book, including but not limited to violence, mental abuse, gaslighting, incest, rape, physical violence, like murder. There are so many triggers, and I feel like me just telling you about that would give you one idea about the novel, but actually there are instances of that in the novel, but they're not really focused on. If anything, it's more about the boy's life, and I think that's what makes it so devastating, is that he doesn't realize that these instances are what they are. He's just looking at it as a very innocent perspective. Still, like, the book was so devastating to me that I was just like, shocked, like shell shocked. I think that this book would be really good for people who like Room by Emma Donoghue and The Dumb House by John Burnside. Like if you put them together, it would make kind of a cocktail that's similar to The Light of the Fireflies. So if you can stomach dark things and you're looking for something that will take you by complete surprise, then I do recommend this book. But like I said, there are a million triggers, so just be wary of that, but it definitely deserves its place as my 6th spot. So number 5 is Sick Fucks by Tillie Cole. I have talked about this a lot. We follow Ellis and Heathen, and they are 2 children who grow up together. Now Ellis is the well-to-do daughter of the mansion owner, and Heathen is the adopted son of the caretaker. The children spend a lot of time together, and although something is kind of off about Heathen, Ellis really loves him. But then something goes horribly, horrifically wrong, and they are separated. Years later, Heathen comes back for her, and Ellis has had significant mental trauma, and she has repressed herself into the world of Alice in Wonderland. So in order to get Ellis out of her mental break, Heathen must reenact Alice in Wonderland, taking revenge on all of the people who hurt Ellis in the past in order to get Ellis back to the woman that she was. So this book has massive triggers for everything. Everything sexual, everything violent you could possibly think of are triggers. So if you don't like dark stuff, violent stuff, anything, don't read this book. Just don't. Just don't. Don't do it to yourself. But if you like twisted romance tales that have retribution, there is so much retribution and revenge, like so satisfying. And then there's also really tender moments between the main characters, and also it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling. So yeah, Sick Fucks by Tillie Cole. Give it a go if you think that you can stomach that kind of dark content. Number 4 is The Mad Scientist's Daughter by Cassandra Rose Clarke. And in this one, we are following Kat, who is a young girl who is living with her mad scientist father. And the mad scientist builds AIs. In this world, AI has already helped save humanity from the destruction. So we are kind of post-apocalyptic, where AIs have already rebuilt us back up to where we were, and society largely thinks AIs are unnecessary and shouldn't be kept around anymore. But the AI that Kat's father builds is different, and his name is Finn. So Finn is so lifelike and so capable of so many different things that the father has Finn raise Kat. You see Finn take care of Kat from early childhood when she just wants to run in the woods, to high school when she doesn't fit in with anyone else, to university when she makes horrible mistakes and Finn has to come save her, to adulthood when she's exploring her sexuality and marriage, and just there's so many things, and oh my gosh. This is definitely my number 1 AI human pairing story of all time. It's possibly my favorite AI story of all time. I just fell in love with Finn. I think Finn is just a bee's knees, and he's so precious, and oh my gosh, like, oh my gosh. So, if this seems like the kind of thing that you would be interested in, I really recommend it. I am going to give you a warning for the middle of the book, because there is a part in the middle of the book where I was like, what are you doing? How could you do this to me? And I was just like crying, and I was like, oh my god, like the author has messed up everything completely. And then later you're like, no, actually, she just made your heart break, and then now she's gonna put it back together. And then in the end you're not sure if she's gonna break your heart again. What's happening? Oh my god, I don't know. It was brilliant. It was so, so brilliant. And I really recommend it if you like AI love stories. Oh my god. Finn is just like, oh my gosh, little pea, little baby. Prince of my heart. So yeah, moving on. So number 3 is We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. And this one follows a woman who is trying to decide if she should have a child or not. So she is a travel writer, and she's married to her husband, and she's not sure if children is what she really wants or not, even though her husband does really want children. And they eventually decide to have a child, and his name is Kevin. Now the way that Kevin turns out is very bad. That part is undeniably true. The meat of this novel is exploring why Kevin is bad, how he got to be bad, whose fault is it, And the way that this book is written is so brilliant because you could argue it's the father's fault, it's the mother's fault, it's Kevin's fault, it's nurture versus nature, it's society, it's expectations, it's any number of things. So I was so blown away by this book by the end that I just wanted to discuss it with everyone I know who has read this book. And I think that a lot of the arguments made in this book are so well done, and the gray tone of every single character, well, except for Kevin, who is undeniably bad, but every other character, there's such an argument for it, and oh yeah, it just blew me away. So if you haven't read this, I really do recommend it. I know that it's had massive sales, like over 1 million copies, and it's warranted in my opinion. Like, the hype is real for a good reason. So yeah, we need to talk about Kevin. We certainly do need to talk about Kevin. Number 2 on my list is Let the Right One In by a Swedish writer, John Ajvide Lindqvist. I always mess it up, I'm so sorry. And I've been talking about this book forever since I read it. It blew me away. I don't often read really, really long books, but in this case it was so quick to read. I think I read it in 1 or 2 days. And we follow a main character who's really picked on at school, and he just wants to get back at his bullies, and he's starting to have really violent thoughts. But suddenly a string of serial murders occurs, and the neighborhood is kind of terrified, and he just hopes that his bullies will be one of the kids who's murdered. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Instead, a weird girl moves in next door, and he starts to be fascinated by her instead of focusing on the bullies. So the girl is really weird, she smells bad, she doesn't know about things like Rubik's Cubes and pop events, but he finds himself intrigued by her, and slowly they become friends. And one of the things about the novel is that the main character, when he finds out a certain specific detail, you're not sure how he's going to take it. But then what he actually does is so surprising that the way the rest of the novel turns out was completely unexpected. I had no idea it was going to happen. And this ending is so satisfying, like 10 out of 10 satisfaction. It is so good. So my number 1 pick, I don't think will be surprising to anyone, but it is Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. Now this is definitely what I think people would call a Marmite book or a Vegemite book. You can either love it or hate it. So this was one that I just absolutely loved. We follow a brother and a sister who are forced to raise their family because their mom is largely not present in their life, monetarily, physically, emotionally, and they find themselves relying more and more on each other, and their feelings start to turn a different way. So if that is not something you can stomach, like, don't even try to pick up this book, but if you think that you would be able to read it, I found this book so well written because the line that it straddles is just such a fine, fine line, and the way that Suzuma writes is just like perfection. And I was wondering where to put this book on this list, but I think this had the deepest impact on me. It put me in a book slump for days. I sobbed for hours, and when my husband read it, it made him cry, and he didn't even cry at our wedding. So, like, well done, Suzuma. So that wraps up my top 10 books. I do realize that a vast majority of them are very messed up, and that is kind of just how it's going to be, probably because I like dark books, I like twisted stories, I just really enjoy them. Not enjoy. I really find them fascinating, and I find that dark elements in people make such interesting characters, and also make the tension and the story development more complex. If you like these books, then please give me a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button, because I like to read dark books, so there will be a lot more of those. I'm also trying to read more translated works. So in this list specifically, there was Let the Right One In, which was Swedish, and there was also The Light of the Fireflies, which was Spanish, and Amatka, which is from Sweden but written in English. But anyway, I am doing my best to broaden my horizons, even if those are very dark horizons. So if you'd like to see more of the same, stick around. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a lovely day, and that wherever you are, your room has AC, unlike mine. So yeah, I'll chat to you guys later. Toodles! Bye!